Good day everybody, my name is Redeyes and welcome back to another What's This Then? The video series where today we're asking and answering the question, Arc Raiders. What's this then? So, Arc Raiders is a PvPvE third-person extraction shooter developed by Embark Studios, who you may know from their previous game, The Finals. Now, it came out about 3 or 4 days ago there on the 30th of October, and I've put about 6 hours into it now. So I'm going to be giving you a first impressions look from someone who is very new to the extraction shooter genre. I have played Hunt Showdown, not a ton, maybe about 30-40 hours, but the way I look at it, Hunt Showdown is a little bit of a different extraction shooter from sort of the traditional style, whereas Hunt Showdown is very much you go into a level, or you load into a game, and there's a goal that everyone wants. Everyone wants this thing. So the PvP is almost guaranteed if you see someone. Because if you have the thing, they want the thing. They have to kill you to get the thing, because you have to get out with the thing. Whereas in this, and sort of other ones like Tarkov and stuff, it's mostly, you're all just loaded into a map, there's some PvE, especially in this game's case, and you're just getting stuff. You know, you're just getting general loot, anyone can have it, or anyone can go look for it in any sort of different places. You know, maybe there's some specific spots you might want to be looking for stuff, yada yada yada. But for the most part, in Arc Raiders, you could go in, loot a building until your inventory's full, and be like, okay, I'm done, and then never see anyone, and never have a need to go find anyone and shoot them. But the PvP is there, should you just want to, you know, have a fight, kill someone, see if they've got good stuff, and take their stuff, you know? So, it's not a... The PvP is not a hard requirement of this extraction shooter, and that's why I would sort of say the Hunt Showdown kind of sits in its own spot as one, and I don't necessarily consider that good experience for going into this extraction shooter. Only in the sense of, when you load into a map with your stuff, if you die, you'd lose it, you know. That's pretty much the main thing here. Now, there is an elephant in the room when it comes to this game. One that I was not fully aware of when I first purchased the game to try it. I was somewhat familiar with it in the finals, and that is their use of AI voice acting. So, the way I had heard, because I didn't know that this game was using some form of AI in its voice acting, but the way that I had heard, and the way that I believe it was the game director, or maybe the head of Embark Studios themselves, I can't remember, it was an interview, where they got asked, like, hey, we've heard you're using AI voice acting in your game, you know, can you go into that a little bit more? And the way they explained it was, they hire voice actors to do a bulk of, like, the line reading for, like, you know, story, cutscenes, you know, you're picking up a quest from someone, the main lines of dialogue. And then what they would do is that they would use some kind of, like, AI text-to-speech thing. It's not... The way they described it was it's not generative in the same way that it can just hear someone's voice and then just rip, you know, any line you want. I'll be honest, I don't know the huge distinction between the two, but I had heard, like, yes, voice actors were paid, and I would presume, obviously we don't know their contract, but, unless I believe one of them talks about it, but might be an NDA sort of thing there. But I presumed that they were going to be paid for, like, 90% of the voice acting, and then the last 10% is that they would use this AI tool to allow it to dynamically do, like, the voice lines, or like the ping lines for the characters in the game. So if you pinged, like, an item in a specific location, your character would be like, I've spotted springs in the apartment building area, you know. So they pay the voice actors, they do the bulk of the important lines, or they do all the important lines, and then the AI model that they use is just like, hey, we're going to use your voice just for, like, all the nitty-gritty stuff. Like, the hundreds of combinations, so that they don't have to, like, keep bringing the voice actor back in every time they, like, add a new item and have to do, like, a whole sweeping, like, set of combination of items and name locations and stuff like that. Now, on the surface, right away, I do not fully agree with that out the gate, because I am sure a voice actor would have no issue with getting, you know, coming back in and just constant work and building up rapport and building up, like, a good sort of work catalog, essentially, with your studio. Like, I have no doubt that a voice actor would love to do that. So, the way that you would hope, the way that you would think this would work, and the way that the way that they were talking in the interviews would sort of make it suggest that they had paid these voice actors sort of more than you would pay for the lines that they had done, for the idea of, hey, we're also buying kind of the rights to your voice in our game to then use it for all these nitty-gritty items. So you're paid, you're compensated as if you kind of did them, but it means you don't have to keep coming back in, and we can just, fire those out the gate, and we don't have to go through the whole process. That would be the fairest approach if you wanted to do that. You're using the AI, not in a generative sense, apparently, quotation marks on that one, and you're getting the sort of expediency of being able to get those voice lines out the gate, like, right away. Because especially with, like, a live service game, like, they do updates all the time. Who knows when they might just add, like, 100 things and then need, like, little lines for it. So I could understand that view. That's probably in the greyest area when it comes to voice acting AI stuff that I would be willing to tread into. However, now that I have played the game for some time, it is very clear, well, I should say it's not very clear, where the real people's voice acting is. Because I have heard examples of voice acting in probably every single scenario you can hear voice acting in this game so far, where I have definitely heard what sounds like AI voice acting. So, like I said, you would think, we'll get the voice actor in, we'll pay them for this cutscene, this opening cutscene to this new map that explains kind of the backstory to it, why it's an important area in the game. Here's a couple of characters just chatting away about it, while some, atmospheric music plays over and some cool backshots sort of thing start happening. Backshots? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, definitely. But no. So the voice lines start happening, and you'll just hear them cut off a word, randomly. Like, it just sounds like there was supposed to be another word after it, but it just stops. That's like a hallmark sign of AI voice acting, because obviously it doesn't know intent. It doesn't know what the real reason it's saying that line is, so it just sounds stilted. And then, that to me is like, okay, so you haven't used it in this main cutscene. Where else haven't you used it? And in the pinging system, like I said, like where I presumed it kind of would have been used, I've heard some lines, like, again, just, it sounds like the character just doesn't quite know the context that they're saying this line in. And that, again, is just a sign of AI voice acting. So, the thing that has made me most annoyed with this scenario is that you've told us you're doing it this way, and then it feels like, or experienced-wise, it feels like you're doing it in a totally different way, which is the way that, would be the harm to voice actors, would be, like, the thing that I don't want to happen, which is for AI voice acting to just wipe out real-world voice acting, because AI voice acting just isn't as good. It cuts people off from their jobs, and it's not like you can even take the monetary approach where, like, oh, hey, our game is now cheaper to make because we used AI voice acting instead of paying real voice actors, so hey, maybe our game won't cost quite as much, or hey, maybe we'll tone down on the, the microtransactions, although they're not exactly micro in this game. So it's not as if you can even use that excuse of, hey, we saved a bunch of money that will then pass on to you. So it's a studio taking people's voices, from what I've seen, not using them in, like, the main important areas, which is what I presumed would be the case when they said they paid voice actors, and then used the AI to just, do the little nitty-gritty parts. And we're just losing overall quality of the game. That is the only thing that's come out of this, is that people who buy the game are getting a less full product, in that your voice acting is not as good, it actively sounds worse. Voice actors, who I can only presume were probably not paid anywhere near enough for this, because, I mean, the voice acting industry is definitely in a weird spot right now, where it's likely the case that if you put out an ad saying, hey, we'll pay you, but we're going to use AI, you're going to get someone who says yes, and not because they're, like, okay with AI voice acting, or this whole thing in general, but because they need the money, because it's getting harder and harder to get, like, because who knows how many games are currently in development, and they're just using AI and not paying voice actors, and they're going to come out, and we're going to hear worse dialogue because of it, So I can't even, even the excuse of, like, oh, well, they consented, it doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't That doesn't fit with me. Because, like, in this industry, like, it's going to be so rough. Like, it's already rough. And it's going to get so much harder. Like, I can understand why a voice actor would say yes to this, because they just need the money. So this is where I'm currently standing with this game. It feels like an Alters situation. The Alters, the game that came out not too long ago there, where they just straight up were like, yeah, there's no AI in our game. And then you look into it more and you're like, that kind of looks AI over there. That kind of looks AI. And then someone goes, oh, they're using AI translation for our multiple languages and stuff like that. And it's terrible. It's like the translations are just wrong and awful. And then you look at the marketing for the Alters, because for me, the Alters kind of came out of nowhere and it was just released. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a game. I went back and looked at some of the marketing for the Alters, and they're actively, like, they have, like, AI marketing, which is where you could, like, talk to one of the characters who's in the game using, like, a generative AI thing. And it's like, if you're going to use AI, be upfront about it. Say to people, like, hey, we're using it for this reason, because it's going to help us, you know, not have to do a million voice lines about how this one particular item is in this one particular area at maybe this one particular part of the map. And it means, you know, we've paid the voice actor as if they were going to do that, but it means we get the speed of being able to pump this stuff out rapidly. Like, if you want to come out there and just say that, fine. It's a grey area. It's not like 100%, oh, thumbs up, you know, all's good, because that's just not how this works. But at the same time, I don't feel like I've been lied to. Where, in this game's case, and I've since gone back and looked, and it's the same for the finals. The finals is a game I didn't really care too much about, and I wasn't making videos like this at the time, so I didn't really go looking into it. But the finals is the same case. Same with the AI announcers in that game. So immediately, I just feel like they've lied, essentially. Or they've very, very carefully danced around the truth. And I feel like I have gotten a worse product because of their lies, if that makes sense. Because they say, yeah, we paid voice actors, you know, and then we just wanted to use them for all the little bits and pieces. And then it turns out that actually, you know, it seems like there's AI voice acting everywhere, all over this game. So it's like, where were the real people this whole time? It just feels incredibly disingenuous. In terms of generative AI in video games, I'm completely, like, against it. It feels like you're paying for just a worse product when it comes to that sort of stuff, you know? It's like when someone makes a game and they put their heart and soul into it and they're like, this is my game, this is my vision, this is my... Like, even bad games, like, just horrifically awful games, you can still see the vision, you can still see where someone thought, okay, this is my idea, maybe I didn't execute it properly, but it's one of the best things about the medium of video games. And I'm sorry, I don't mean for this video to kind of turn into, like, an AI rant on video games, but it's how this game has made me feel. And it's just when you see this type of AI in these sorts of video games, it's just incredibly frustrating, because you've taken one of the most interesting parts about what video games are, and you've replaced it with, I mean, it's a term that people throw around a lot for it, and it is slop, you know? And I don't mean this in, like, the haha friend slop game, or, you know, the way people use that. I mean, legitimately, what the AI is producing compared to what a real person does in these contexts, in my eyes, is slop. Like, it is just worse. It has no intent. It has no artistic merit. It's, like I said, and then you put that over the layer of, like, oh, hey, yeah, we paid our voice actors, and then we just used their voice a little bit here and there, you know, and then it turns out, or, you know, it's really looking like this is all AI. This is all AI. And it's just, it is what it is. You know, I can't help but get mad at that. I feel like that's a perfectly reasonable thing to be annoyed about. I understand that AI is a thing, and it's going to be a thing for a while. I hear a lot about how AI is a bubble, and it'll pop soon. Or not soon, but it'll pop one day, and I don't know. I don't know what the world is going to look like in between now and then when that happens, or if that does happen. I understand that AI is getting used more and more. Doesn't mean I have to be okay with it. Especially doesn't mean I have to be okay with it being danced around with on the truth. You know, just tell me it's in there. You know, if you want to make a little game and you say, hey, I don't have enough money for this, I want to use AI while it's in early access, and then when the game's released and we're making money, I'll replace it. You know, you want to do that? Sure. I would not be okay with that. I would personally just record the lines myself or something. I would just draw it in paint if it was an image, like, just whatever. I think that is so much more important, has so much more weight to it, because it came from a person, an idea. And also it doesn't, you know, cut voice actors out of their jobs for doing a better job just for the sake of saving some time and money. But yeah, that's my AI rant about Arc Raiders. I'm sure there's definitely more things I could go into, and I probably will make an AI in video games thing, video where I actually, you know, jot down all the things I feel about that and all my talking points and all, you know, a more structured conversation. Because like I said, I understand it's going to get used. It is going to get used. But like I said, it doesn't mean we have to be okay with it. But anyway, let's talk about the rest of this game. Well, I mean, this is the thing now, right? I mean, I'm about to say some like nice things about this game. I'm about to say that, like, hey, the audio design, like, because these are former DICE employees. They know what they're doing when it comes to audio design, like the actual gunshots, the actual like atmospheric sound, all that sounds really, really good. The game looks great, it runs great. I'm about to say all these really, really nice things, and it just sucks that there's just this one little part of the game where it felt like they went, we don't have to worry about that. Who cares? Who cares about that? That's feels like they don't care when they use AI for that sort of thing, you know? In this sort of context. And, you know, there will be many other contexts. But let's go into the settings menu. Because PC-centric channel, settings menus are important here. That's what we do. So let's get on to it. So, gameplay. You've got a few different things in here. Hub position, show reload progress, show damage direction. There's just a, you know, few wee things, crossplay, server, all that sort of business. Nothing too crazy. It's nice that you can turn crossplay on or off, although in a game like this, I don't know why you'd ever need to turn it off, really. Because I haven't really noticed, like, cheating or anything like that. But I suppose that could be a problem in the future. Maybe console players don't want to play with PC cheaters, you know. But it is more prominent on PC. That's just the way it is. Controls, fully rebindable controls. Lovely to see. Always weird when a game doesn't have that these days. Graphic settings, you know, you've got your, like, borderless full screen, you've got your frame gen. I'll never use frame gen in the game where I will potentially be fighting other people. Absolutely not. I do not want that input delay. VSync, low latency, all that stuff. You got a frame rate limit, and it goes up in increments of 5, which is very nice. I would prefer it if it was like 1 and 2, you know, little individual increments, but, you know, 5's pretty good. And it goes pretty high, too. You can, it's very much prepared for those new monitors that are, out there already, actually, that go up to like 600 hertz and stuff. Absolutely insane stuff. I mean, if you're still playing at like 1080p and stuff like that, but... then you've got your resolution scaling and anti-aliasing. You know, you can do your DLSS, and you can even set the DLSS model and stuff. The transformer model is slightly more performance intensive, but looks nicer. So if you can use this, definitely do use that. Field of view. It's a third-person game, so I've left that at 70, but it's nice that that's even there, because a lot of third-person games just won't even bother with the field of view setting, because, you know, there's less complaint about it in third-person games as compared to first-person. Motion blur, just turn that straight off. There's ray tracing. I didn't even realize I had that on, to be honest. I haven't really noticed too much crazy reflection work going on. There is quite a bit of the ray tracing... There can be some weird visual elements in this game, and now that I'm realizing this is on, I'm wondering, is that ray tracing related? You know, it can be a little bit spotty, that little bit, what's the word? It's almost like TV static. You know, it's a little bit weird looking. So I'm wondering, but the game runs fantastic. I haven't had any issues with performance, no hitches, no stutters, no low frames at any point, you know, so, and that's with this on, with DLSS on, like, quality and stuff like that, so game is very well optimized. And then you've got, you know, overall quality settings here, pretty much everything you'd really ever need. I turn anti-aliasing low, can't turn it off though. It would be nice to turn it off, just that's a personal preference of mine, but not a huge deal. In-game performance overlay, and if you're playing on like a laptop, you've got like idle energy saving stuff and all that sort of business, which is always nice to see. Audio mode, they have, you know, you're in all sorts of different, well, system default and stereo / headphones, not a huge amount. They've also got this night mode, which is pretty cool, which raises the low sounds of the game and lowers the high sounds of the game to try and make everything kind of there's not as much dynamic range between all the different audio sources, so you can have your volume down lower, but still hear everything clearly, if that makes sense. So if you're playing at night, you don't want to wake people, but you still want to be able to hear the footsteps and all the little sounds, you turn that on, but there's less range, you know, so things are going to sound very similar volume-wise with that on. But it's nice that it's there. Mute game while minimized. Music during gameplay, you can turn that off if you wish. I've kept it on, haven't really noticed it really being too much of an issue. Then you've got all your volumes, you've got proximity voice chat, because there is that in the game, which is quite fun. Voice chat itself, you can do automatic gain control if you wish, which is interesting, but seeing as voice acting is a big part of the, or not voice acting, if voice chat is a big part of this game, it's good to see that in there. Party voice chat, you can do all that. Proximity voice chat, you can set different keybinds and all for that stuff. Here's another use of their AI stuff going on. You can do raider voice heard by, and what it basically does is whenever you use proximity voice chat, or you can set it to proximity or everyone, so like party-wide stuff, it basically uses AI to manipulate your voice to sound like one of these selected voices. I am yet to hear anyone using this because I've gone through all these voices. There's 10 of them, and I haven't heard anyone sound like these at all, because most people just, you know, speak using their normal voice, or they use the voice lines, which is where people are just, you know, saying like "don't shoot" or "okay" or "all right," you know, that sort of stuff. So I haven't heard anyone use this, and yeah, I have no idea if it even sounds that good. Probably not, given the other voice acting then. And then you've got like subtitles, background opacity, stuff like that. Accessibility, you got colorblind modes, font sizes, move crosshair when line of fire is blocked. It's interesting that this sort of stuff is in accessibility, because that's just useful in general, I feel like. Especially when, yeah, like all this crosshair settings and stuff like that. I mean, I guess, you know, you could, you know, up the contrast on it, and that would be an accessibility thing. Bring game to foreground on match fine, that's just useful, it's just a nice little setting, but hidden down here in the accessibility settings, I feel like a lot of people miss this sort of stuff, because if you're not someone who generally needs accessibility settings in games, then you may not come in here at all. Mouse and keyboard, very basic stuff, just some, you know, sensitivity, zoom, and all that. There's not, I think there's only one weapon with like a scope in it, so you only really need scope, zoom, sensitivity, you don't need like tons of different ones like say Battlefield or something. And then you come into controller, and there's all sorts of different stuff in here. I am playing this game with mouse and keyboard because it is a shooter, and you gotta shoot people. So I'm going to use mouse and keyboard. PvP, I'm always going to use mouse and keyboard over controller, certainly. But yeah, that's the settings. There's some good stuff in there. Like I said, the game has been running pretty damn well. No issues there at all. Now, other stuff to talk about at this main menu. So you'll notice up here we've got a few different tabs, we've got some quests, got all sorts there. So if we go to the workshop, this is your area where you can do some like crafting and stuff. There's also a chicken here called Scrappy. After every game you click on Scrappy and you can he will get stuff for you, essentially. So every game you do, you will always get some base components, like no matter what, and you can train Scrappy to bring more stuff. So that's just one way that this game sort of gets around the fact that new players can be very scared by extraction shooters, because it's very easy to get into the mindset of, oh, what if I just die like several times and then I've got nothing, and then what do I do, you know? So this is kind of like a way to alleviate that concern, and I do believe that's one area where this game does quite well, is alleviating that sort of concern. Workbench, this is your basic one. You start with this and it just lets you make some basic things to go into the world with, you know, shields, augments, which affect your like inventory and how much stuff you can bring, what types of things you can bring, different guns, basic ammo, some basic healing stuff. You'll all start with that, and you can upgrade it, or sorry, no, maybe you can't upgrade this one, but you can upgrade the other ones. And then you make these other ones from here, so gunsmith, gear bench, explosive, these all just let you make different parts of it, so you can make guns, you can go acquire blueprints out in the game so that you can bring them back and then make different types of weapons, and they require different stuff, and that stuff, of course, you will get out during the gameplay loop and bring it back with you. There is a lot of random shit in this game, but that is just how extraction shooters work. And, you know, make different explosives, blah, 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 all sorts of things. So you would do all that here, and then take that out with you on a run, potentially. So we go in here, we go into the Raider section. This is just your characters. This is where you can do some customization, and you can also do the skill tree, which is one part I find quite interesting in this game. So there is just, this is your, kind of like your meta progression. Your character is always leveling up, even if you die. It's not like Hunt Showdown where it's like a new person. It's still your character. You were kind of like retrieved, I guess. And you can go into multiple skill trees, and they all have different things. So like conditioning and stuff like that, it's just going to be like, you know, when you're hurt in combat, regain a fixed amount of stamina. You know, it's little things, but some of them like quite nice. Like, you know, when you're searching a container, loot is revealed faster. It's not a huge amount, and also it would be nice if they showed the actual numbers for these things. Like, what is this? Like, how much is this going up by? Because I would say even with 5 points in that, I haven't noticed that being massively faster, but I can't imagine they could really give that much of an advantage, because then you're sort of talking about, like, what if someone's max level and has all these, and they're put into a game with someone who's not? You know, how much of an advantage do they have? So it's one of those things you have to think about. Customization, you can go in and do all this. Of course, they are going to advertise all the stuff in the store at you in here, even if you don't have it, which is, you know, just annoying. But you can also do, like, emotes, and you can even customize Scrappy as well. You can change the color of Scrappy and put a little stuff on him. Put a little bucket if you want to go buy it. There's trials. I haven't got to those yet. They're level 15. As you can see, after about 5-6 hours of the game, I'm only level 8. So leveling is not the fastest in the world, but, you know, that's not a bad thing. Projects, you have to get to level 20, and then you construct a caravan to send your raider off to an expedition beyond the Rust Belt. I don't know what that is, but it's good to see that there's stuff to continually work toward in that regard. And then you have a codex, which just lets you know, like, here's what the history of this place is, here's who these people are, here's what that enemy is, blah, blah, blah. Useful stuff, actually, because you go in and see certain enemies, and you'll be like, oh, this thing, here's kind of how it works, or here's a cool way to fight it, sort of thing. Because a lot of the PvE in this game is actually, like, quite hard. You know, it can be. One mistake, and you can find yourself, like, nearly dying. So we can also go over to traders. These are, if you're familiar with extraction shooters like Tarkov and stuff, like this is very familiar. You just go to different people, they will sell you different things, but they also give you quests in this game. Let's see if I can show you. Where can I show you those? So quests on the left here, I've got these over here. So like the right tool, destroy these different enemies, you know. Go out there and do that, and you'll get rewards. So these are your kind of like, not only are you just going out into a level to grab stuff just to bring back to improve things, you're also doing it to complete quests and stuff. This is a further part of your progression. Decks and stuff like that, this is just like battle pass, essentially, because of course we have to have a battle pass. And then the store, which is egregiously priced. This is absolutely insane stuff. I don't know how we've gotten to the point where, like, this is okay, essentially. It absolutely absurd prices, like almost more than half the price of the game for some of these things is absolutely ridiculous. So, like, you know, 2400 here. We're talking about £15.49. That is about that is half the price of the game for this. You know, the value propositions of these things are absolutely ridiculous. Now, they are all cosmetic, so we're not talking about a pay-to-win scenario here, but I feel like the industry has moved toward using that excuse of, oh, well, they're just cosmetic, to charge you out the ass for things that used to just be in these games, you know? And I understand the whole live service thing, like, oh, we gotta make money somehow. Look at Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 was more expensive than this game, and sells skins for a couple of pounds, you know? Like, a battle pass costs you 10, you can get pretty much the currency back again. Also, the battle passes don't expire as well. I don't know if they do in this game. I don't see any semblance of that, but we're on Season 1, so that could change. But yeah, this whole idea of, like, these need to be this expensive because we're doing live service, and live service is expensive. It's like gaming has become bigger than it's ever been. More people are buying games. You're making more money from games. To make games is becoming easier. So I never buy the excuse of, oh, these need to be this expensive because, you know, that's just the way it works. No, it's absolutely not. We've just been slowly frog boiled to the point where these prices are okay, essentially. Don't even get me started on, like, gacha games and stuff like that. Absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so other than that, there's also the inventory. This is your big stash of things. This has an inventory limit, which is very stinky. I do not like that at all. I feel like this should just be, you know, just find stuff. Like, who cares? Just let me hold it all. Because this just leads to, like, me wondering, like, oh, can I sell that? I don't know. Can I get rid of that? I have no idea. It just leads to, like, loot anxiety almost, you know, and that's just yeah, maybe that's what some people really like about these sort of games. Maybe that's just a part of extraction shooters that I'm just not a big fan of, so... That could just be a me thing. Now, that'll be a person by person, but I don't feel like... Because there's already a there's already a backpack size limit, and then there's also a loadout weight limit when you go into the maps as well, so it feels like there's just too many restrictions on loot. I feel like if they just made it so that this one is infinite, maybe, that wouldn't be too bad. Especially considering we're not really competing against other people in any real sense here. You know, you can fight other people, but there's no, like, huge competitive advantage, I guess. Unless someone gets to the point where they just have millions of, like, the best gun ever, but I feel like we're talking real hypothetical scenarios there. And I don't know what the limit on this is. Maybe it's just a form of progression that they wanted to add in there, but I personally don't think that one has worked very well. But there's all sorts of different loot. You've got this augment, this, like I said, effect. So if I hover over that, you can see it sort of red out some areas and gives a safe pocket. This is a free augment. You can go out with a free loadout into the world so that you don't have to worry about, like, bringing anything with you. You'll just be given some random things, which is quite nice. But you do lose the safe pocket, and the safe pocket means, like, if you go out and grab something and put it in that safe pocket, even if you die, you're guaranteed that thing, no matter what. So it's a nice little balancing thing there between the free loadout and still incentivizing you to go out with a normal loadout, essentially. But you've also got your shields. You got a primary and a secondary. These can be just any two weapons, but they do have weight, so you have to keep that in mind with what loadout you're bringing. You have to bring ammo with them. Your quick use are separate slots from your backpack, and these are generally used for grenades, medical, like healing items, stuff like that, shield recharges, all that sort of business. There is also durability in this game as well, so you have to keep your weapons like well maintained. So you can see I have a weapon over here that I got from a particularly fun nighttime raid where me and a guy... And this is the fun of extraction shooters. This is some of the emergent, like, gameplay stuff that you really only get in these sorts of games. But me and a guy had run into each other. Like, we literally both just emerged from a bush and walked into each other. Instead of shooting, we both just said, like, hey, you know, friendly here. I was still very new to the game and told him I was trying to do this quest. He said, awesome. He's just here looting stuff, so he'll help me out with that. We tried to find a probe. It went wrong. A rocket drone turned up, and rocket drones are really scary, especially if you have no idea how to deal with them, which I did not at the time. And we ran for ages, nearly getting separated several times, this thing trying to kill us. Several times he looked back and was like, oh my god, you're still alive, I can't believe it. Because this was the first time I'd ever fought one of these. And he eventually got hit by one of the rockets that took him out. And to res someone who's not in your party, you need a defibrillator item, which I did not have. And he basically just, when you're down on the ground, you're like crawling around, you can hold space or E or whatever it is to surrender, or to give up, and then you just die and move on. But he told me, like, you know, don't leave his body. He had a really good gun on him, and I should take it with me, and this was the gun. Unfortunately, I can't repair it. It's low durability, but that's a cool item sitting in my inventory that has a story behind it, you know, and so at some point, you know, maybe I'll repair it and take it out. Who knows? But yeah, that's some of the cool stuff about extraction shooters that you really don't get from other games, which is why I can definitely see the appeal of them. But yeah, that's pretty much everything in the settings and my big AI ramble and all these tabs up here. So let's actually go into a game itself. Well, actually, I'll show you that free loadout. So when you go to click play, you get a choice of the different locations. So the starting area is Dam Battlegrounds, then you get Buried City, then Spaceport, and then after that you unlock like Blue Gate and Stella Montis, and they all have varying difficulties. You can see at the top here, this has 3-star. However, this does have a harvester thing going on with it at the minute, so I think that ups the difficulty. Buried City's 3-star just by default. Spaceport's 4-star by default. I have been to each of these. Well, Dam Battlegrounds is where I've been spending most of my time, but I have done a couple of runs into Buried City and Spaceport with free loadouts just so I can see what the layout is like and what they're like, which is one of the best parts about the free loadout, because you can go and experiment. And every now and again a night raid will unlock on some of these places, and night raids are like the difficulty, I assume, just goes up to like max, essentially. Yeah, it's like 5-star. Well, 4-star in the Dam Battlegrounds, but enemies are just everywhere. They're way spookier enemies, you know. You will see players dying. When they die, a little flare launches up from their body and you can see where someone died, and you'll see those just occasionally every now and again. It's quite funny. But yeah, so you would pick an area, Dam Battlegrounds, you would click confirm, you would do your loadout, or you can click free loadout and it'll just send you in and you'll get a randomized gun, a randomized shield. Well, it's always a light shield, I believe, because this thing can only hold light shields, and some random quick use items and some bullets and stuff. Really, really fun to go out with that sort of thing. This is a really nice way to keep new players, like, sort of not getting the anxiety of going out and dying and losing all this stuff, because you can just go into your free loadout and do whatever you want. You know, it's world's your oyster at that point, but you don't have the safe pocket to guarantee you're going to come back with something. So that's a good way to balance it out. So I'm going to do what I did last time, and I'm going to throw up some gameplay from my stream of this, which I streamed yesterday. And we will see... I shall see you in like 2 seconds on your end. On my end, I'm going to go get that footage ready, and then I shall discuss the actual game itself. See you then. Alright, so welcome back. So, let's talk a little bit about the actual game itself, shall we? So, in the background, you're just going to be seeing... well, I spoke about that night raid earlier that I went on that had a pretty interesting moment, so I figured, let's chuck that up there, shall we? So, premise. Let's talk a little bit about the premise of the game, because I talked about the technical state and how really I have no issues with the technical state of the game. Runs pretty flawlessly. This is with ray tracing and stuff even on, which I'll be honest, I haven't really noticed the ray tracing too much, so they could probably even turn it off and get even more performance out of this game. No crashes, nothing like that. I haven't even had any network disconnects, and that's something I've been seeing some people been complaining about as player counts have sort of been rising on this one, because it is very popular right now. It is very, very popular. But the premise. So, this game is a little bit Matrixy. So, the surface of the planet has kind of been taken over in a war with machines called arcs, and they have taken over the surface of the planet and driven humanity underground. Now, humanity still accesses the surface via, like, elevators or metro tunnels, various other things. And essentially, they come up to the surface and they scavenge for supplies, they hide from the robots, or maybe they fight the robots, and then they get back down and, then they help out their local community with their various supplies that they have brought back, for example, or maybe they'll go up top to repair something that is vital to something underground, etc. Stuff like that. So a little bit Matrixy in there. It's a pretty cool premise. I think it leads itself very well to this this type of game. I know they're trying to set up some like larger narrative as like the time goes on. No idea how that'll go. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. These sorts of games tend to be very hit or miss when it comes to that aspect, because the whole live service of it tends to be a little bit fluid in that regard, so it's kind of hard to say. Visuals. The game looks very, very good. I would say you can probably kind of tell that this was made by ex-DICE employees. This game gives a very Star Wars-y, like the Star Wars Battlefront games vibe to it, in terms of how everything looks, how like the aesthetic, and how like machinery just like so the enemies look quite sleek and stuff, but the stuff we're using looks quite it just really reminds me of Star Wars. It's quite bulky, in a sense. A lot of the time, like our guns are quite the guns look super Star Warsy. Some of them look like they could just be straight out of Star Wars. It's kind of crazy how much some of them really do. And yeah, really not a bad note to say about the visual presentation or the graphical style of this game. Runs really well, looks really nice, aesthetically has a really strong look to it. Again, I mean, there's a store in this game. They have said in a few interviews that they're not going to let, they're not going to do the Fortnite or the Call of Duty thing that completely dilutes the game's identity by bringing in, stuff that just doesn't fit with the look. So, we'll see what happens. No idea. Also, now that I'm looking at the footage in the background, I completely forgot that the dude I ran into during this night raid was called Big Daddy. It's kind of funny. But yeah, visuals, absolutely fantastic. Let's speak a little bit about the music and sound design. So, music, there's some real moments where the music kicks in this game. It's very, very impressive. It can happen a lot whenever you're just getting extracted. I haven't really noticed much like sort of music in actual, like, just wandering around, maybe get into a fight here or two. Because obviously you wouldn't really want the music to come in at those moments, especially if you're fighting another player and you really need the sound, like footsteps and stuff like that. But the overall like music and stuff is very, very good. Really, really like it there. And the soundscape is very fantastic. Like the footstep audio, the sound of drones flying around, gunshots in the distance, especially like explosions going off in the distance sound really, really good. Again, you can tell this is a studio that has a lot of former DICE employees. There's just some hallmarks there that just that talent, they know what they're doing with certain things like that, and music and sound design is one of them. And then, of course, the other part of it is going to be the voice acting, but in case you skipped the settings and sort of intro part of this video straight to the gameplay, I spoke a lot about the voice acting there, and I'm not going to bring that up again. So go back there if you want to hear that. It was a bit of a ramble, I'll be honest. It wasn't it kind of came off the cuff, you know, just how that sort of thing is with these sorts of videos for me personally, how I like to do them. But let's speak to the actual meat and potatoes here, the actual gameplay. So you spawn in, you're on one of these maps, you come out of a set spawn location, and the maps can last for 30 minutes. However, you may not be brought in exactly at the 30-minute start time. I believe anywhere in the first 15 minutes, players can spawn into a lobby. So it does add this quite a good bit of dynamic sort of player emergence into these maps, where you're never quite sure how many people could be on the map at any one time, because there could be like 3 at the start, but then over time that trickles and becomes more and more and more. I will say you run into people like quite often. So I'm not sure what the number would be. I don't know if they've ever specifically said, but it seems quite good. I think they've found a good balance between like how often you see people. It doesn't feel too much so that you're seeing people all the time, and it doesn't feel like it's so barren that, you know, you're never seeing the PvP or, you know, other player aspects of the game. So that there's really good. But once you're loaded in, essentially, unless you have a quest, you are pretty directionless. You're just kind of told, well, you're not told, sorry, but you're just kind of incentivized to just go to some areas. You can open up the map and you can see some areas are like medium loot density, high loot density, stuff like that. So you can go to those areas and see what you can get. However, certain areas will offer different things. So like this residential area is going to offer things that you would be more likely to find in a house, for example. So the loot system is done in a smart way. So like you can go over on the map and you can hover over this area and it'll say it's an electronics area. So you're more likely to find things that are electronics based in that area. So you might, before you load it in, you might need a particular item to upgrade a workbench or to make a workbench. And then to find that item, you may load in and be like, oh, well, that area over there says it's electronics based. That's where I'll go and find it. So this is the part of extraction shooters that lose me a little bit. These moments feel very directionless, very not very engaging. Very not very engaging. That was good. I'm going to leave that in. But yeah, I load in, and I almost feel like sort of paralyzed with choice. Like I could go anywhere, but a lot of the time what ends up happening is I walk into the first building and instantly fill my load up with just random shit I found in there. And then it's like, oh, well, time to get out, I suppose. And yeah, that can be how a lot of your games go if you want them to, where you can stick around and try to find, you know, better rarity loot, or maybe you can stick around and maybe try to find some players to fight and steal their stuff. You know, I do like the choice in that aspect of it. I like how dynamic that part of it feels. And a lot of the time you will go into a game with a quest, so it won't be you're just truly thrown into a map with absolutely no idea of what to do. There will always be some quest to say, hey, here's a thing that you could be doing for some reward, and you can kind of work toward that. You'll most likely run into other players, and you can maybe, you know, hit up the voice chat and be like, hey, I'm doing this quest, are you heading that area? And then you can sort of team up and go that way, because the PvE can actually be quite scary. And let's speak a little bit about the PvP. I think out of all the extraction shooters I have either played or watched, this has probably the most interesting PvE. The actual robots themselves are genuinely a threat. Knowledge on how to kill them is absolutely crucial, and even then, that's no guarantee that you're going to be able to deal with it easily because of how dynamic these situations are. Robots are constantly on patrols. They will call for help, especially certain kinds. You'll find like robots called like snitches, and they'll like float really high in the air, and if they see you, they'll call in other robots and then stay really high in the air, so it's kind of hard to deal with them. So there's tons of different types. They all have different sort of methods of killing you. Some of them are basic, you know, basic bitch robots that are kind of like, you can shoot them down, but you know, it might take a few bullets, and depending on what gun you bring, especially if you're doing like a free loadout, you might get given a gun that's really not that good against that particular robot that you're now fighting. So it really incentivizes actually being cautious around the robots, especially when you see some of the bigger, scarier ones. Which I feel really enforces the idea, the premise of this game really hard, and I think it's a really good bit of immersion right there. Like, you see a bunch of robots and you're like, I legitimately have no reason to fight these because it would just expand my stuff unless I'm looking for a component of one of them, you know. Then at that point you're thinking like, yeah, I need that, so I need to fight. Here you're seeing me attempt to find a probe for one of my quests, but there was this like sniper arc bot thing. I'd never seen that before. It must be like on this map, you really only see it during like night raids and stuff. So my buddy ended up like trying to bait the shots while I opened this and stuff. But this is where it all goes kind of horribly wrong. But it's quite fun. But yeah, so arc robots, they're very scary. That's the rocket robot, by the way. That's the one that's going to mess us up. So I really like that the enemies are scary. And this is on like the easiest map. I know this is on a night raid, so it's some of the harder enemies and stuff, but like the maps only get harder and the night raids only get harder, and ways of dealing with enemies is only going to get more difficult and more complex, all that sort of stuff. So that's really, really good part of the game. Now, PvP, obviously with this being so dynamic and there being no real incentive to fight each other than, I want your shit, give me your shit, means that you're going to run into a lot of very interesting PvP situations. So you can run into people like I did with this guy, and they might be friendly. I would say in solos, you're probably going to run into a lot more friendly people, just because people don't have like backup or like friends with them and stuff. I've only played solo. I have not played with a group at all. So I have heard that group play tends to be more aggressive. Like it tends to be you run into groups more and then just get into a fight. Whereas solo play seems to be more like, hey, you might just run into someone and we're all nice. You'll very often hear people, if they hear that you're there or they think someone's around them, they'll very usually start doing the voice line of, hey, don't shoot. And then you reciprocate and say, hey, don't shoot. And then, you just both go your own way. And then that's sort of generally it. I have run into some very nice people who like have seen that I've been hurt and they've like actually healed me and stuff like that. So you see a lot of really interesting stuff like that. And that's what makes this sort of extraction shooter like very interesting to play. Especially to something like Hunt Showdown, like I was saying earlier, where there really is no incentive to not kill someone. Especially if they have the thing that you want, which is the boss bounty. If they have that and you don't have that, I mean, you want to kill them. So very, very, I would say almost never in Hunt Showdown did I have a situation where someone didn't fight after we've sort of noticed each other. Unless they've, been low HP and they're just running, leaving that fight. So yeah, that is one of the most interesting parts of this game. For sure, and with this being one of my first proper extraction shooters of this kind experience, that part is hitting me even harder, because I'm sure people who played Tarkov, this is maybe not too unusual. Yeah, interesting stuff. I really like it. Other than that, you will load into the map and you'll just go search containers. You'll maybe find some locked rooms. Maybe you'll need to find an item that you'll find in another place to then unlock that. So there's like a dam here that there'll be a door that you need to unlock, and to get that key you need to go find it somewhere else, and it's just a random chance loot drop, and then there's a chance you might die with that key on you before you get there, and it all leads into this permadeath. Like this is what the extraction shooter is kind of all about, and it is the tension. The tension of each run, bringing something with you, and you could lose it, and getting into those scenarios with people where they're friendly, and you just never know, are they going to shoot me in the back because I've got good stuff, and if they knew about it, they might shoot me, sort of thing. It's all really, really cool. Other than that, whenever you actually loot a container, as you're seeing on the screen now, you have to actually like search it, so it won't just appear automatically. You have to sort of manually go through each slot one by one to sort of simulate how it would actually be to look through someone's stuff. So that's all well and good. Incredibly tense moments. Again, just tension is the name of the game when it comes to extraction shooters. And whenever you're doing these things, it really is tense, because you can just be shot at any time. Someone who just heard you got into a fight, now you're looting a body, they could have been like, 100 meters away, and now they're right there and they're about to shoot you. So really, really good stuff. Really gets the heart pounding in these moments. Especially when you're breaching certain areas. So there's certain areas you have to breach with your melee weapon. You sort of like pry them open, and that's very loud and takes a little bit of time. And in those moments, like someone, if they're nearby, like they will hear you. So those can be very tense. So after you've been in, after you've maybe had a fight or two, after you've maybe made a friend or two, and you've maybe done a quest or two, and then you're like, all right, I've got my stuff, I want to get out of here. So you have to go to an extraction point. Now, there are several extraction points all over the map, but there's two kinds. There are the normal ones, which anyone can use, and then there's the hatches, which you need a specific item to be able to use. However, the hatches will stay available at all times, whereas the ones that everyone can use will slowly start like disappearing as time of the match goes by. Now, you can always see how long they're going to be up for. If you open the map, you can see like this one's going to be available for 20 minutes of the game. So the longer you stay in a game, the spookier it gets to get out, because if everyone else is kind of left it late in the game, well, you're all kind of forced into one extraction point now, and who knows, maybe you'll get into a fight. The earlier you try to leave, the more options you'll have. So there might be one near you, or, you know, maybe you tried to get in one, but someone fought you away from it, and now it's closed because of the timing, and now you have to run to another one, but that one's really far away. You know, lots of these moments that require, like, some level of planning, you know, some level of forethought, and not doing that can lead you into some very spooky situations. Now, I haven't actually seen what happens if the timer runs out if you don't extract, but I presume you die. I think one of the voice lines comes in and says, like, a certain type of, it's like an overseer or something, is going to, like, turn up, so it's probably like a big robot turns up and, like, just catches you and you're dead. So yeah, you always want to get out before the timer hits 0, essentially, and this, again, can lead to some incredibly tense moments where you're racing against the clock to get to a certain place, but you don't know someone's going to be sitting there, because someone could just be sitting in a bush waiting for it to get activated, and then they're going to kill you and loot your stuff and then leave themselves. You know, it's very possible. Very, very dynamic stuff. And then once you've gotten into the elevator, so you call the elevator, and it takes about 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, something like that, to actually show up, and it's making noise this whole time. So people in sort of a wide area around you know this extraction is being activated, again, adding to the tension. And then once it turns up, you gotta get in, and you have to activate a little console to then lower it again. So you're vulnerable while this is happening, very open to being shot in that moment. And this is why, you know, going in and being friendly with people who are maybe around the area might be good, because now you've got someone to watch your back, you know, etc. if you're not playing in duos or trios already. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is very, very known to the extraction shooter player base already. This is, like I said, mostly coming from someone who is unfamiliar with extraction shooters. There were elements to this in Hunt Showdown, but it was mostly like get to an extraction point and get out before someone comes to kill you, because they probably will be. However, in Hunt, you know that there can only be, I believe it was 12 players in a game. Whereas in Arc Raiders, I don't think there is a limit to how many can be. Well, I'm sure there is like an upper limit. There can't be like 50 people running around. But just because you've killed 12 people, for example, to use Hunt Showdown, just because you've killed 12 people doesn't mean another 10 might not appear over, you know, over the course of the game before it ends. So you never know in this game if you're alone on the map, and you're most likely not. I'd say not at any point in this game did I believe I was alone on the map at any time. But yeah, that's kind of it and everything I wanted to talk about gameplay wise. So just to sort of wrap up a little conclusion on this one, it's a really well polished game. It's a really well made extraction shooter that has just this big asterisk next to it, and that is, like I said at the beginning, I do feel misled when it comes to the AI voice acting thing. I mean, there's a reason Steam requires you to, like, publicly list how you use AI in your game. Like, if everyone was just okay with it, we wouldn't need that. So it's an important part of it. And even with their listing, they mainly make it around the fact that they use a machine learning thing for their NPCs. Which, you know, again, it's not generative AI. So it's in that gray spot for me, where I'm kind of like, I could see it, okay? I can understand why. And it's, you know, machine learning, we've used that before, like the invention of, you know, ChatGPT and shit like that. So I can be like, all right, you know, see what you're doing. All right, it's, you know, you're being upfront about it. You're being upfront, and I can understand why, because it's supposed to be that, like, they use machine learning for these, like, you can see an enemy in the distance there that has, like, 4 big legs. So, like, if you were to shoot one leg off, it's, like, how it would adapt and sort of keep moving. Now, you could absolutely pay a designer to do all that, but, you know, a designer is still going to be needed to get to that point. So, no one's losing a job here, essentially. This is why it's sort of a gray area for me, because who knows where that could go. That's the spooky part. But when it comes to the voice acting part, unfortunately, they have not put their best foot forward there. They've said they're using AI to supplement after paying voice actors to fill in, like, all the tiny little, like, hey, that spring is in that house on that part of the map voice lines that, you know, there's going to be 100 different variable or 1,000 different variables for. And, you know, you would assume if they care about the actual voice acting talent themselves, that they would pay them as if they had got to do those things. But it means that now they're able to just pump that out using this AI system. But since I've gone into the game and seen that these maps and stuff have... sorry, not these maps, these cutscenes, like there's one playing in the background right now. They very clearly are using AI voice acting in there because there's just some weird stunted deliveries. There's some weird, like, it sounds like someone's going to say something and then keep going and it just stops. I just can't believe it, you know? I just can't trust that what you're saying is true when I'm seeing something totally different. I also went through the credits and I couldn't find any credit to any voice actors. Now, there was a contractors layer, so it could have been in there, but it's very unusual for a game not to list their voice actors as like a separate thing. So don't necessarily know what to make of that. Like I said, they could have been in the contractors one. That could have been. I did try Googling who the voice actors were for Arc Raiders, but it's a very difficult thing to Google currently because you will just find all, you know, Reddit posts and forum posts and news articles about the usage of AI voice acting and the controversy and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite hard to... I couldn't actually find like names of who's on there. So that again just adds to the layer of I don't know how I feel about all that. But yeah, I am against generative AI for this sort of thing. It seems like this game is using it, not in how they've kind of advertised and spoken in different interviews. So I don't know how much I'll be actually playing this game after finding that out, but I have played some of it before finding that out, and I still wanted to make a little video on it, and then make it very clear on my stance on that. And yeah, I believe that with the way they have handled this, with the way they have talked about it, and how it feels like they have sort of skirted around how they're actively using it, and then the actual execution of how it's being used in the game, I personally don't think I could support that any further. Like, I wouldn't be purchasing anything else regarding to this game and stuff like that. That to me is the real big stepping point. Like, if you're just using generative AI outright in your game to cut people out and not pay people, that's like the no-go. But the way this game was doing it, with this like weird ambiguous gray area where voice actors were being paid, blah blah blah, that's like a, okay, you know, we'll see. I'll give you a chance to see if like what you're saying is legit here. And then the way it's been executed, the way it's been shown to me, doesn't seem any different than if they had just replaced their voice actors. I can't find any listings of voice actors. It doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good at all. And I would hope that voice actors were paid and compensated well for this, because it feels like the wool's kind of been pulled over people's eyes in that regard. And you could absolutely just pay those voice actors to do that. I just know for a fact they would be happy to come in and do those voice lines. Like, you may not be able to get them at the speed you want, but you know, pay your voice actors and don't use AI, because it's a worse product. It cuts people out of jobs. Even in the ideal scenario where they really were doing it like they said they were doing it, and voice actors did do a majority of this, who's to say it wasn't in that contract that, you know, we can't continue to use your voice in our next project? You know, that this is the gray area. This is the horrible thing about AI currently. So I feel like for myself, I just kind of have to sort of stamp it out when I see it. But yeah, that's how I feel about this game. I don't know if I'll be playing any more of it unless they specifically come out and sort of address any of that, but given that they didn't do that with the finals, probably won't. Given the success of this game, they probably won't. But I also feel like it's still just necessary to tell people and just to let them know. So yeah, thanks for watching, and that is me for now. Hope you have enjoyed the video, the critique, the first impressions. Sorry this went on a massive rant about AI, but it's the world we live in, and I feel it's important that our games continue to have the human element in all aspects of it, because what, like, games are people, you know? You wouldn't have the best games, the absolute peaks of the gaming space, we wouldn't have them without the people, you know? So, that's how I feel about it. I shall catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye.